The Last Stand Protocol. The emergency klaxons echoed through the command center of Harmony Station as Admiral Cathvar watched another star system disappear from the galactic map. His scaled hands gripped the edge of the tactical display, leaving small scratches in the metal. In the past 6 months, the Devourer Collective had consumed 40% of known space, turning thriving worlds into nothing more than raw materials for their endless mechanical hunger. Another system lost, reported Counselor Lyrics, her ethereal form flickering with distress. The energy being's usual calm demeanor had cracked weeks ago when her homeworld became part of the gray void spreading across their galaxy. The Kepler sector is completely dark now. 17 billion souls, gone. Cathvar's reptilian features hardened. As Supreme Admiral of the Galactic Alliance Defense Force, he had commanded fleets through 3 major wars, but nothing had prepared him for this. The Devourers weren't conquerors seeking territory or resources they could negotiate over. They were a plague of self-replicating machines that consumed everything organic, breaking down planets, stars, and entire civilizations to fuel their expansion. "What's our current fleet strength?" he asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Down to 38% of original capacity," replied his aide, a blue-skinned Andromedan whose normally cheerful demeanor had turned grim. The Zenthari Third Fleet was completely destroyed defending the Outer Rim colonies. The Crystalline Armada lost 60% of their ships in the Battle of Nexus Prime, and the Ethereal Defense Corps is holding the line at tremendous cost. Lyrics finished softly. "We cannot maintain this rate of attrition much longer, Admiral. At current losses, we have perhaps 3 months before our combined fleets lack the strength to mount any meaningful resistance." A holographic display showed the true scope of their crisis. Red zones marked Devourer-controlled space, spreading like an infection across the galaxy's spiral arms. Blue zones indicated Alliance territory, shrinking with each passing day. Only a handful of green zones remained, marking the core worlds where billions of refugees had fled, hoping the military could somehow stop the unstoppable. "There must be something we haven't tried," Cathvar muttered, studying the tactical data for the 1000th time. "Some weakness we haven't found." "Actually, there might be." The voice came from the back of the command center, causing every head to turn. Captain Elena Vasquez strode forward, her human features set with determination. At 42, she was young for a starship captain by most species standards, but humans aged differently, lived differently, thought differently. That difference had made them valuable allies to the Galactic Alliance for 2 centuries. "Captain Vasquez," Cathvar acknowledged with a nod. "I wasn't aware you were aboard the station. Just arrived with the refugee convoy from Sector 7, Elena replied. "But I've been analyzing Devourer attack patterns during the journey, and I think I found something." She approached the main display and gestured for access. With Cathvar's permission, she pulled up a series of tactical recordings from recent battles. "Look at this. Every engagement follows the same pattern. The Devourers send probe ships first, analyze our formations and weapons, then adapt their main force accordingly. They're learning from us." "We know this already," huffed General Vorth, a massive bear-like Ursoid whose species prided themselves on straightforward military tactics. "They adapt. We adapt. They adapt faster. We lose." Elena shook her head. "That's just it. They're not really adapting. They're calculating. Everything they do follows predictable algorithms. They assume we'll respond logically, efficiently, with maximum force preservation. But what if we don't?" Counselor Lyrix's form brightened with interest. "Explain." "Humans have a saying. If you find yourself in a fair fight, your tactics are wrong. The Devourers expect fair fights. They calculate based on logical military doctrine. But human military history is full of victories won through seemingly illogical tactics, desperate gambits, and strategies that made no sense on paper but worked in practice." Cathvar leaned forward, his predatory instincts recognizing the scent of opportunity. "What are you proposing, Captain?" Elena took a deep breath. The Defiant Dawn is humanity's newest warship. She's not the biggest or most heavily armed vessel in the fleet, but she incorporates technology that the Devourers haven't encountered. More importantly, she's crewed entirely by humans who think the way humans think. One ship against the collective. General Vorth scoffed. Madness. Not against the entire collective, Alina corrected. Against their central processing node. Our intelligence suggests they coordinate through a master hub that processes tactical data from all their forces. If we can reach it, damage it, we might disrupt their network long enough for the Alliance fleets to mount a counteroffensive. The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. The central processing node was located deep in Devourer space, protected by thousands of their ships. It would be a suicide mission by any conventional analysis. The Defiant Dawn would never make it through their defensive perimeter, Kethvar said finally. Their firepower would overwhelm any single vessel. Not if we don't fight them conventionally, Alina replied. The Dawn has experimental stealth systems, quantum phase generators, and a few other surprises that Earth's engineers have been developing. But more than that, she has a crew trained in asymmetric warfare. We don't plan to fight our way through. We plan to sneak through, using tactics so unconventional that their algorithms won't predict them. Lyrics pulsed with thoughtful energy. Even if you reached the processing node, how would you damage something protected by the collective's best defenses? Alina smiled grimly. Leave that to my chief engineer, Dr. Marcus Webb. He's been working on something special. A weapon that attacks information rather than matter. If we can get close enough, we can introduce chaos into their perfect order. The debate that followed lasted hours. Military minds from a dozen species analyzed Alina's proposal from every angle, finding flaws, suggesting modifications, arguing over probability matrices. But underneath the technical discussion, something else was building. Hope. For the first time in months, they had a plan that wasn't just about slowing their defeat. Admiral Kethvar finally called for a vote. The decision was unanimous, though General Vorth grumbled about human madness even as he supported the mission. 3 days later, Captain Alina Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Defiant Dawn as her ship prepared to depart Harmony Station. The warship was sleek and angular, built for speed and stealth rather than brute force. Her hull was midnight black, designed to absorb sensor radiation rather than reflect it. Inside, she carried the most advanced human technology available and a crew of 200 volunteers who knew they might not return. All stations report ready, Captain, announced her first officer, Commander Sarah Kim. Engineering reports the quantum phase generators are online and stable, added Dr. Webb over the comm. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Alina nodded and opened a channel to the assembled Alliance fleet. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species had gathered to see them off. On the main viewer, Admiral Kethvar's scaled face appeared. Captain Vasquez, the hopes of the galaxy go with you. May your ancestors guide your path. Thank you, Admiral. We won't let you down. Alina turned to her crew. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to attempt something that every military manual says is impossible. We're going to sneak through enemy territory, penetrate their strongest defenses, and strike at the heart of an enemy that has conquered half the galaxy. By all logical analysis, we should fail. She paused, looking at the faces around her. Human faces, showing the mixture of fear and determination that had carried their species from a single world to the stars. But logic is exactly what the Devourers expect from us. Today, we show them what humans do when logic isn't enough. Today, we prove that hope, courage, and a little bit of calculated madness can overcome any odds. Today, we remind the galaxy why humanity has earned its place among the stars. The Defiant Dawn engaged her drives and slipped away from the fleet, her stealth systems making her nearly invisible against the star field. Behind her, the Alliance forces began their own preparations, ready to capitalize on whatever chaos the human ship could create. As they entered hyperspace toward the dark heart of Devourer territory, Elena felt the familiar mixture of fear and excitement that preceded every dangerous mission. The odds were against them. The enemy was powerful beyond imagination, and failure meant not just their deaths, but the probable destruction of galactic civilization. But they were human, and humans had been beating impossible odds since they first looked up at the stars and decided to reach for them. Today would be no different. The defiant Dawn disappeared into the void, carrying with her the last desperate hope of a dying galaxy. The dawn of victory. 5 days into their journey through Devourer space, Captain Elena Vasquez knew their luck was running out. The defiant Dawn had successfully avoided 3 patrol groups using tactics that would have made conventional military advisors question her sanity. They had hidden in the debris field of a consumed planet, used a dying star's radiation to mask their signature, and even played dead while drifting past a Devourer construction facility. "Captain, sensors are detecting massive energy signatures ahead," reported Lieutenant Torres from the tactical station. "It's bigger than anything we've encountered so far." Elena studied the readings on her command chair's display. What she saw made her blood run cold. The central processing node wasn't just a facility, it was an entire artificial moon, bristling with defenses and surrounded by a fleet that dwarfed anything the Alliance had ever assembled. "My God," whispered Commander Kim. "There must be 10,000 ships out there." Dr. Webb's voice crackled over the comm from engineering. "Captain, I'm detecting something else. The node is generating a massive quantum field. I think it's not just coordinating the Devourer forces, it's actually controlling them directly. Every mechanical unit in their network is slaved to that thing." Elena felt a chill of realization. If Webb was right, then destroying the node wouldn't just disrupt their coordination, it would shut down the entire collective. But it also meant the defenses would be beyond anything they had imagined. "Options?" she asked. "We could try to transmit our virus from maximum range," suggested Kim. "The stealth systems might keep us hidden long enough." "Negative," Webb interrupted. "The quantum interference is too strong. We'd need to get within 10 kilometers of the node's core to establish a stable transmission link. That puts us right in the middle of their defensive grid." Elena closed her eyes and thought. Every human child learned about the great military leaders of their species, from ancient generals who held mountain passes against impossible odds to space admirals who saved colonies with nothing but courage and quick thinking. They all had one thing in common. When faced with impossible choices, they found a third option. "How long would you need to upload the virus once we're in position?" she asked. 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes if their security systems fight back harder than expected," Webb replied. "And how long could we survive in their kill zone?" Silence on the bridge. Everyone knew the answer. Against 10,000 ships and the node's own defenses, the defiant Dawn would last perhaps 30 seconds. Elena opened her eyes and smiled. It was the kind of smile that had unnerved her academy instructors and worried her commanding officers throughout her career. The smile that meant she had found her third option. "New plan," she announced. "We're going to give them exactly what they expect, and then do something completely different." She turned to her communications officer. "Send a message to Admiral Kethvar on all emergency frequencies. Tell him to begin the diversionary attack in exactly 6 hours. Every ship he can spare. Full assault on the Devourer forces in the Sigma Quadrant." "Captain, that's 3 systems away from here," Kim protested. "How will that help us?" "Because the Devourers will do exactly what their programming tells them to do. They'll reinforce the threatened sector by pulling ships from other areas, including here. But they'll leave enough to protect the node because their calculations will show that no single ship could threaten it." Elena stood and began pacing, her mind racing through the possibilities. They're right, of course. No single ship could fight through those defenses. But what if we don't fight them? What if we convince them to let us in? The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Their captain's plans were always unorthodox, but this sounded like madness even by human standards. "Explain," Webb requested over the comm. The Devourers capture and analyze everything they encounter. Ships, weapons, crew, technology. What if we let them capture us? What if we raid the Dawn to look like we're disabled and drifting? They'll bring us in for analysis, straight to the processing node. Commander Kim's eyes widened with understanding. And once we're inside their defenses, we unleash everything we've got. The virus, our weapons, whatever it takes. We'll have maybe minutes before they realize what's happening. But that might be enough. Captain, Webb said quietly, even if the plan works, even if we destroy the node, we won't be getting out. The explosion alone will probably take us with it. Elena nodded soberly. I know, but if we succeed, we'll save billions of lives across the galaxy. If we fail, they die anyway. The choice seems clear to me. She looked around at her crew, seeing her own determination reflected in their faces. These were volunteers, every one of them. They had known when they signed up that this might be a one-way mission. I won't order anyone to stay, Elena said. We can launch the escape pods before we begin the final approach. You can try to make it back to Alliance space. Lieutenant Torres was the first to speak. With respect, Captain, where would we go? If the Devourers win, there won't be an Alliance space to return to. We're staying. One by one, the rest of the bridge crew voiced their agreement. Elena felt a surge of pride in her species, in the humans who had chosen to stand with her at the edge of oblivion. 6 hours later, the diversionary attack began right on schedule. Elena watched as thousands of Devourer ships departed the node's vicinity, racing to counter the Alliance assault in the Sigma Quadrant. Just as predicted, they left a reduced but still formidable force to guard their most important asset. Initiating shutdown sequence, Elena announced, "Make it look convincing." The Defiant Dawn's engines went dark, her weapons powered down, life support reduced to minimal levels. To any observer, she appeared to be a derelict ship drifting helplessly through space. It was a performance that required precise timing and complete faith in their captain's unconventional strategy. The Devourer response was swift. 3 collector ships approached, their mechanical appendages reaching out to snare the apparently disabled vessel. Elena felt the ship shudder as they were drawn into the belly of the lead collector, surrounded by the cold efficiency of mechanical precision. Phase 1 complete, she whispered into her comm. Dr. Webb, are you ready? Standing by with the virus package. Captain, once I start the upload, they'll know we're active. You'll have maybe 3 minutes before they lock down everything. Understood. All hands, prepare for combat. This is what we came here to do. The collector ship carried them deeper into the processing node structure, past automated defenses, and through security barriers that would have stopped any conventional assault. Elena watched through the ship's sensors as they approached the core chamber, a vast spherical space where the node's central intelligence processed data from across the galaxy. Now, Elena shouted. The Defiant Dawn exploded back to life, her engines roaring as she broke free of the collector's grasp. Weapons that had been secretly kept on standby opened fire, tearing through the unprepared mechanical systems around them. At the same time, Dr. Webb initiated the virus upload, sending cascades of chaotic code into the node's information networks. Alarms began blaring throughout the facility as the Devourers realized they had been deceived. Defensive systems came online, filling the space around the Dawn with deadly energy beams and projectile weapons. The ship's shields flared and sparked under the assault, but she pressed forward, driven by human determination and the desperate hope of a dying galaxy. Upload at 60%, Webb reported, his voice strained with effort. The security systems are fighting back, but the virus is adapting faster than they can compensate. Elena gripped her command chair as the ship shook under enemy fire. Through the chaos, she could see the node's core, a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with malevolent intelligence. If they could just hold out a little longer. Hull breach on Deck 7. Torres reported. We're losing atmosphere. Structural integrity failing on multiple levels, added Kim. Captain, we can't take much more of this. Upload at 90%, Webb's voice was triumphant despite their desperate situation. Almost there. The defiant Dawn was dying around them, her hull cracking, her systems failing one by one. But she had done her job. The virus was spreading through the node's networks like wildfire, introducing chaos into the perfect order of the collective. Across the galaxy, Devourer ships began to falter as their coordination disappeared. Upload complete, Webb announced. The virus is in their system and replicating. Elena smiled as she watched the node's crystalline core begin to flicker and dim. Around them, the facility's lights went out one by one as the virus consumed the collective's central intelligence. They had done it, against all odds, with a plan that no sane military mind would have approved. They had struck at the heart of the enemy and won. All hands, brace for impact, Elena said calmly as the node began to collapse around them. It's been an honor serving with you. The explosion when it came was visible from 3 star systems away. The processing node, the facility around it, and everything within 100 kilometers simply vanished in a burst of light that briefly outshone the local sun. The defiant Dawn and her crew disappeared with it, their sacrifice marking the beginning of the end for the Devourer collective. Across the galaxy, mechanical ships suddenly went dark as their controlling intelligence died. Planets that had been partially consumed stopped their transformation. The gray tide that had threatened to devour all organic life came to a sudden, complete halt. Admiral Kethvar received the news aboard his flagship as the Alliance fleet completed its diversionary attack. The Devourer ships they had been fighting simply shut down, drifting powerless in space like abandoned toys. Captain Vasquez was right, he said quietly to Counselor Lyrics. Human madness was exactly what we needed. In the months that followed, the galaxy began to heal. The Devourer threat was over, their ships and facilities nothing more than scrap metal waiting to be recycled. Planets that had been partially consumed could be restored. Refugees could return home. The Alliance had survived, stronger and more united than ever before. A memorial was built in orbit around Earth, humanity's homeworld. It bore the names of the Defiant Dawn's crew and a simple inscription. They dared when others despaired. They hoped when hope seemed lost. They proved that courage, not logic, determines the fate of worlds. Captain Elena Vasquez and her crew had saved the galaxy not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through the uniquely human ability to find hope in hopeless situations and victory in impossible odds. Their sacrifice reminded every species in the Alliance why humanity had earned its place among the stars, and why the galaxy was safer with humans in it. The dawn they had brought was not just victory over the Devourers, but the dawn of a new age where the impossible was merely the next challenge to overcome.